With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories: Lawrence and Bartlett involved in major drug and gun trafficking case in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Prime Minister Drew reaffirms commitment to Nevis.
ECPCGC's MSME Growth Guarantee Initiative offers new hope for small businesses. Venezuelans in Guyana warned against support of illegal elections for Essequibo. The St. Lucia Prime Minister says gun violence is putting increasing pressure on the country's healthcare system. DBS St. Lucia has that story. Internationally, world indifferent as Israel planning huge extermination. Now, the details. On May 6, 2025, Justice Ian Morley, presiding at the High Court, delivered sentences to two men whose involvement in a significant organized crime operation shook the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Kimron Lawrence, 39, and Akeem Bartlett, 30, both of Nevis, were sentenced for their roles in a major drug and firearm trafficking case spanning from January 2020 to March 2021. Lawrence, representing himself throughout the trial, was identified by the court as a mastermind behind the sophisticated importation network. The operation centered on trafficking cannabis and illegal firearms, with Bartlett, formerly a junior customs officer, playing a pivotal role in facilitating shipments through official channels. The critical breakthrough occurred on March 4, 2021, when authorities intercepted a FedEx package at Vance Amory Airport, disguised as a Bluetooth speaker and addressed to a Janai Gardner. The parcel contained two upper receivers for Smith & Wesson handguns. Bartlett, in possession of the package within the FedEx van, initially claimed it was his personal speaker. However, a subsequent search revealed the concealed firearm components, confirming suspicions. Intensive investigations unveiled a trove of evidence, including hundreds of voice notes and video recordings, many implicating Lawrence directly in orchestrating drug shipments and firearm imports. Of notable concern was recorded communication outlining plans to bring in an AR-style assault rifle, underscoring the breadth and ambition of the operation. Among the most damning pieces of evidence was footage dated January 11, 2021, capturing Lawrence wielding a handgun in a threatening manner toward then-girlfriend Shanika Gums, who later accepted a guilty plea for her accessory involvement. Justice Morley painted a vivid portrait of Lawrence in his sentencing remarks, describing him as an affable, charismatic man who unnecessarily misused his influence and charisma. The judge cited Lawrence's admission in recorded voice notes describing himself as the biggest drug lord in SKN, emphasizing the seriousness of his criminal undertakings. While the court acknowledged mitigating factors, including Lawrence's lack of prior convictions, his role as a father, and demonstrated remorse, which included taking responsibility for the role that Bartlett and Gums played, Justice Morley made clear that Lawrence's actions demanded a firm and unequivocal response from the judiciary. Lawrence was convicted of successfully importing roughly 5 handguns alongside significant quantities of cannabis. His sentence comprises 14 years for engagement in organized criminal activity, with an additional 5 years for firearm possession, both to run concurrently. The court characterized Bartlett, represented by legal counsel Vaughn Henderson, as under Lawrence's spell. As a customs officer, his active participation in the operation represented not only criminal collusion, but a serious breach of the public trust placed in him by the community and his employer. He was found responsible for facilitating at least 2 cannabis shipments and unwittingly aiding the March 2021 attempted importation of firearm components, which he mistakenly believed to be another drug shipment. Considering his clean record, expression of remorse, and plea of guilty, Bartlett was sentenced to 7 years for engaging in organized criminal activity and an additional 5 years for the attempted firearm importation, with the sentences running concurrently. Shamika Gums received a 1-year sentence in March 2025 following her guilty plea as an accessory to the firearms charges. Another accused, Maynard, had charges dropped at the magistrate's court. Janai Gardner, the U.S.-based individual connected to the operation, remains at large. The firearm components seized in 2021 remain confiscated and will be officially handed over to law enforcement authorities for appropriate use. Justice Morley underscored the gravity of the case, stating these offenses squarely fall under the Organized Crime Prevention and Control Act. He emphasized the need to warn the public that participation in or association with organized criminal enterprises, particularly involving public officials, will be met with significant judicial consequences. Both defendants received credit for time already served, Lawrence with 9 months and 13 days and Bartlett with 7 days. Quote, "The word needs to spread," Justice Morley declared, quote, "that to associate with organized criminality or even to be impressed by it carries real and lasting consequences," end quote. The sentencing is pivotal to the Federation's ongoing efforts to dismantle organized crime networks.
For decades, there have been strong debates about the relationship between St. Kitts and its sister island, Nevis, particularly how resources are distributed and how the Nevis Island Administration interacts with the federal government of St. Kitts and Nevis. However, in more recent times, particularly since the August 2022 general elections for the Federation, Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew and Premier of Nevis Mark Brantley repeatedly expressed the importance of a close working relationship. At his May 13 roundtable discussion, a question from the press to the Prime Minister sought to find out whether he had any arrangement in place to meet directly with the people of Nevis in a town hall setting to hear their grievances and concerns. In Nevis, there have been several grievances over unfinished projects, including the Alexandra Hospital, the Nevis Track and Field Stadium, and the broiler industry. There have been other concerns, such as the cost of living and electricity costs, which have dominated discussions. The Prime Minister said the Nevis Island Administration has been working well with the federal government to have the issues of Nevis addressed, but a visit to Nevis to meet directly with the people is on his radar.
With respect to the direct communication, communication always with the Nevis Island Administration. As the Prime Minister, though, you're asking, there's an office over there, and I intend to have that direct interaction with them as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are to the people. I would say, however, that the Nevis Island Administration has been working very well with the federal government in terms of addressing the issues of Nevis. So I think that is a good foundation to have a good working relationship with the Nevis Island Administration. Irrespective of who is leading the administration, it's important that St. Kitts, the federal government, and the island administration always have a good relationship. But a direct interaction that you speak about, yes, that is definitely on my radar.
The Prime Minister identified 3 significant areas where the Nevis Island Administration and the federal government are collaborating. They include geothermal, the Vance W. Amory International Airport project, and a revenue sharing agreement.
That geothermal project is receiving the largest grant or largest financial support, let me put it that way, financial support ever as a single project from the Green Climate Fund. That geothermal project in Nevis. I could have negotiated something else, but I think it gives Nevis a chance really develop into a country that we all come out and gives it a chance as well. So together we are moving on this one. This was stifled down the last administration. The other thing is the airport development. The federal government has now stepped in to support the financial backing to really, I would say, upgrade the airport on Nevis. We have done that. We went to Parliament, we did it. I have signed the document about 2 weeks ago to finalize it. So Nevis is on its way to get a refurbished, upgraded airport. That again would help to advance Nevis going forward. I would like to say also, with respect to Nevis, the Premier had asked about the issue of fair share as the term it, but that was termed in the 7 years prior. And I asked the World Bank to do a study. The World Bank study is done, and the document has been shared with the Premier about how we should share the revenues between St. Kitts and Nevis, taxable and non-taxable. Constitution only speaks to the taxable, but the non-taxable, where the CBI comes in, that was also analyzed, and so that is now with the Premier, and we will have meaningful discussion as to how. So those significant ones, geothermal, the airport development, how we are really going to share revenues, and to back Nevis where we have to as the federal government. This is significant for Nevis.
For several years, some individuals have called for an independent Nevis, suggesting that Nevis has not been treated fairly in some cases. Others believe that it may be difficult for Nevis to thrive independently. However, the Prime Minister clarified that the federal government will continue supporting Nevis.
Nevis has not been left out and should not have been left out, and we continue to give Nevis support on a monthly basis. We have not stopped.
On the May 14th, 2025 episode of ECCB Connects, Shanna Derrick, Senior Technical Assistant of the Corporate Relations Department at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, checked in with Carmen Gomez-Triggs, CEO of the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation, ECPCGC, for an insightful update on the MSME Growth Guarantee. This initiative is designed to improve financing access for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises MSMEs across the region. Gomez-Trigg elaborated on the Growth Guarantee's origins and purpose, emphasizing the gaps they discovered through their engagement with MSMEs.
Over the years that we've been in business, we found that we haven't been attracting all the people that we could attract. So we did have some uptake of the guarantees. However, there was still some left out of our fold, and our mission is to bring everybody within the fold. So when we did a little bit of deep drilling, we discovered that some people did not have the documentation, and we needed to find out why. And the why was that they weren't sure what to do, how to keep their books and so on. So that was a gap we are trying to fill, because if you don't have records, the bank can't assess you, neither can we.
The ECPCGC designed the guarantee to include bookkeeping support to address this challenge.
So we are trying to fill this gap with this guarantee by, in fact, giving the client the ability to get bookkeeping services done so that we can all see where he or she is at in their business. So for this guarantee, we included in the loan amount $1,500, which is part of the loan, but we are guaranteeing that extra amount. And 3 months after the loan has been disbursed, the client can go to a bookkeeper, an accountant, and get proper financials done. And then we will take that and assess those and see where he or she is at.
The ECPCGC has been strategically marketing this product across member states.
We went to all of the countries, and we are here in St. Kitts, so we would have gone, before we launched it, we would have spoken to our people, our institutions in St. Kitts. So we went out to the institutions in St. Vincent and Grenada in December. Then we went to St. Lucia, Dominica, and Antigua in February. And we spoke face-to-face meetings with clients. We did training at the banking level, and the response has been really, really good for this particular guarantee. It has been there for the other guarantees as well, but this one, really good.
Gomez-Trigg highlighted essential enhancements that make the growth guarantee attractive and accessible.
The first thing we said is you do not need an equity injection, which was a little bit of an obstacle for some of them. Then we also said you can come to us if you have no collateral. So you can grow the collateral amount, which is based on the loan amount. You can grow that over the life of the loan. So those are two big enhancements to the program.
Acknowledging the realities of modern banking, she explained.
Everybody's using mobile banking these days, and, mobile banking, we call it mobile banking in this case, but everybody's using that medium these days. So the bank has a kind of a track of what your business is doing. So we say, if you go to your banker, explain to them what your revenue stream is like, so what your income is coming in, what you are paying out, whether you have a salary, whether you have employees. Talk to your banker, and then they can put a picture of what you're doing together. And they are convinced that you are a good prospect and they can lend to you even though you don't have formal financials.
She reassured prospective borrowers.
The selling points of this is that you don't need the collateral to start. You don't need the equity injection to start. You don't need a formal financials to start. And I want to reiterate, this is not to say you're not supposed to have some invoices and receipts to show the banker, or a bank statement where you've banking with the bank and so on. You need to have something. So you can't start with just nothing. You need to have something. And for those who don't have anything, the ones we spoke to, we said to them, take 3 months after we've met, start to write down all your income, all your expenditure, and then we could start to get a picture.
When asked about the level of engagement so far, Gomez-Trigg said,
engagement does not mean success at alone at the first rung. However, guidance is given because we are advising them as to how to position themselves to go to the bank. And those who already have documents and so on, we take those documents from them, e-copy. We look at them, we ask them what else they have and so on, and then we take it upon ourselves to refer it to our bankers, the institutions. So we would call Bank of St. Lucia, ECAB in Antigua, ACB in Antigua, and so on, say, we've got this client, we've got these documents. Could you give this client a call, talk to him or her, suss out what they want, what their needs are, and so on, and we are willing to work with them.
Partnerships with commercial banks and credit unions have been vital to the initiative's progress.
We have champions in St. Lucia, in Grenada, and in St. Vincent. Those are the three leading countries. But we also have partners who are pushing the product in Antigua, in Dominica, in St. Kitts. And I have to say that recently, St. Kitts Credit Union has come on board and they're doing great things with us. We had a session with them last year, October or November, and they're doing great things with us. So we are really, really gone with it.
This collaboration extends deeply into the banking communities.
Over the years, we've developed relationships with the banking officers and the credit managers and so on, to the point where they can pick up the phone and call us and ask us a question and say, I have this client. Tell me, I have some questions. How do we look at this? How do we construct this facility and so on? And we are very responsive to them. So collaboration is key in what we do.
Gomez-Trigg offered clear guidance for small business owners still hesitant or struggling to take advantage of the growth guarantee.
We've had some reports that when they go to the bank, the bankers don't want to listen to them, which is why we came in and say, come to us instead. So we do have a WhatsApp number that you can reach out to us. It's 869-662-8989. And we also have an email, info@ecpcgc.org. And then there's our Facebook page as well. So you have a couple options that you can use to reach us. We are very responsive.
In offering encouragement, she emphasized the mutual responsibility of both the ECPCGC and the clients.
The message is, come one, come all, we are here to serve you. But there's another part to that little saying. The other part is that we are doing our part to make sure that you can get access to finance to grow your business. The other part is that you have to do your part. You've got to start to keep your invoices together, to keep your records together, to start to write down what is going on in the business so that we can analyze it and then we can determine where you go from here. So it's a two-pronged thing. We do our part, you do your part, and we go together.
Using relatable examples, Gomez-Trigg illustrated how the growth guarantee translates into tangible benefits for small businesses.
We have people who are in the catering world who are making food to sell and so on. If you don't have money, you're going to go to the supermarket and buy retail to make and sell. So that means that your profit is limited. You're cutting yourself off.
Right.
So with the guarantee, you can borrow some money, and it's not a grant. I need to say you must pay it back. You can borrow some money. You can stock up on your inventory. So instead of buying 2 bottles of ketchup, you buy a pan of ketchup, right? But that has
case of
ketchup. But that can go so far.
Right.
So you can do that, and you can cut the cost of making your goods. You can either pass on the savings to the consumer, or you could keep it yourself. I won't tell you what to do. So in terms of your purchases, I would say that if you are you're in business, you need to buy in bulk.
She also offered insight into helping businesses meet higher industry standards.
Some people are working from the kitchen tables and they want to get a stainless steel because they want to sell to one of the big supermarkets in the country, and they have to have certain environmental standards. We can help you take that step up into that environment so that you can then say, okay, Mr. Massey, I have the HACCP and the good manufacturing practices and so on. I've got that down pat, so you need not worry to buy from me. So basically, it's taking yourself to the next level, to a higher level in your business, and we can help you do that.
On her connection to this work, Gomez-Trigg expressed passion rooted in community and vision.
I'm a Caribbean person, and we all are Caribbean people. So anything to serve my people is of value to me. But also, our SMEs have been on the bottom rung of the ladder for far too long. And I've looked around and seen across the world where SMEs are not always at the bottom of the ladder. There are things that can be done, that need to be done. And I think that I could be a messenger in some way and help some of my people along the way. Also, this project is a brainchild of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And I know that Governor Andwine is very passionate about him, and I feed off his passion as well. So yeah, that's it. I think it's a winning combination.
The importance of small businesses in regional economic growth was also reinforced.
And he's also very passionate about the big push.
Yes.
Doubling the size of the economies of our region.
Yes.
And small businesses play a great role in this.
Correct. So we are on the same page when it comes to growing businesses.
An inspiring testament to ECPCGC's dedication came from her recounting of a recent outreach effort in St. Lucia.
When we did St. Lucia in February, we went to visit a client. We went down a hill, across a river, up a hill to see the client, to see what she was about, what were her needs and so on. So we don't sit in an office. I am out in the region very, very often, many times a year. I'm hardly in office because I need to go and see my clients. I need to go and see my stakeholders. I need to talk. I need to dialogue. What can we do better? How did we do this? Always doing an audit on what we're doing and always doing a pivot to make sure that we can meet the needs of our beneficiaries.
The MSME Growth Guarantee Initiative is a beacon of hope for small businesses in the Eastern Caribbean. It provides financial support and the guidance necessary to build sustainable enterprises and grow the regional economy. In regional news, Venezuelans in Guyana warned against support of illegal elections for Essequibo, News Source Guyana reports.
The Chief of Defense Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, Brigadier Omar Khan, has warned that Venezuelans living in Guyana will be arrested and deported if they participate in the controversial May 25 planned elections by Venezuela to elect a governor of Guyana's Essequibo region. There are no preparations taking place in Essequibo for any such elections, and the government of Guyana will be hosting a national independence anniversary event in Essequibo. Brigadier Khan still warned on Thursday that there will be consequences for both Guyanese and Venezuelans living in Guyana who get involved in the Venezuelan elections.
That any Guyanese should participate in such an election, there will be implications for that person. This is almost like a passive coup because you're voting in a foreign government to have or cede territory. So that would be a serious offense. Any Guyanese participating in such election will be arrested and there will be implications. Secondly, any Venezuelans living in Guyana participate in such election will be arrested and deported.
Brigadier Khan said the state's position was made clear during his recent visits to communities along the border with Venezuela. He said it would amount to a passive coup for Guyanese and Venezuelans living in Guyana to take part in the illegal elections for Guyanese territory.
Anyone, any information, anyone participate in such election, let us know. We don't want that person among us. We don't ever want that.
The International Court of Justice in its latest ruling ordered Venezuela to refrain from its planned election for a governor for the Essequibo. But Venezuela said it will not bow to international pressure, judicial blackmail, or a foreign court to turn away from its beliefs and convictions. Instead of abiding with the ruling of the court, Caracas said it wants Guyana to return to the negotiation table. Guyana has blanked any such move.
The St. Lucia Prime Minister says gun violence is putting increasing pressure on the country's healthcare system. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
Prime Minister Philippe J. Pierre has underscored once again the substantial burden that gun-related injuries are placing on the nation's healthcare system during his remarks at the 2025 CARICOM Impact's 28th meeting of the Standing Committee of Chiefs of Immigration and Controllers of Customs. He emphasized that the escalating incidents of gun violence are not only a matter of public safety but also represent a growing challenge for health services, straining hospital capacities and diverting attention from other critical areas of care.
We continue to witness the gun-related violence in St. Lucia and CARICOM countries, in our streets and in our communities, causing a drain on our health care resources. When we speak about crime sometimes, we seem to forget the drain on our health care resources. It's estimated that every gunshot, it costs in St. Lucia between $100,000 per gunshot.
The National Security Minister emphasized the vital responsibility immigration chiefs and customs controllers have in safeguarding their nation's borders. He acknowledged their frontline position in preventing the influx of illegal weapons, controlling the movement of people and goods, and maintaining the overall security and sovereignty of the respective countries.
Your role as immigration chiefs and customs controllers, you need to have a large degree of courage. You face pressures, both external and internal. There are those who will try to compromise your integrity through intimidation, bribery, and sometimes political influence. They will ask you to look the other way, to bend the rules, to select expediency over principle. You must have the courage to stand firm in your conviction when everything around you is urging you to yield.
Prime Minister has also called for stronger regional cooperation and proactive measures to curb the flow of illegal firearms and reduce the human and financial toll gun violence is exacting on Caribbean societies. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
We now bring you these international reports.
Let's go to Gideon Levy now. He's a columnist at Haaretz newspaper. Joins us from Tel Aviv. Good to have you with us. So, Gideon, as this Arab gathering is taking place, what we've been seeing is an intensification of attacks going on even today from the Israeli side, which I guess highlights how little attention Israel is paying to the statements, the calls coming from the Arab world at this point.
This was quite an understatement. We are witnessing now a beginning of a huge extermination program. Nothing but this. And Israel doesn't hide it. This new phase of the war will be against rebels, against uprooted people, refugees without anything who will be pushed to the south. And the entire Gaza Strip will be really exterminated. I can't find the right words to describe what are the plans. And as you say, there is no one to stand and stop it, to raise his voice. The world is indifferent. The Americans are indifferent. And Israelis believe that that's part of them, at least, believe that that's the right thing to do. And Israel has the right to do it after the 7th of October.
And we saw this sort of pattern particularly intensifying while Donald Trump was actually touring the Gulf region. Was there a link there? Was Israel making a statement?
Israel made only one statement, and this is that Israel realized that Donald Trump can't care less about Gaza, and therefore the way is open for this operation. Would he really want to stop Israel? He could do it with one phone call. He didn't bother to do it. He did some other very important things, I must say, and some of them can be very promising. But by ignoring what Israel is doing now in Gaza, he's a full partner to what's going on to happen now.
So what do you make of the reports of a strained relationship between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Now, you see, we shouldn't take too seriously the personal relations because Donald Trump is so unexpected. It's already a cliche to say so, and changing his mind and his views and his plans from one day to the other. He can one day say he wants peace in Gaza and the next day let Israel go to this attack now. I don't have any tools to measure his criteria.
What about the idea that Israel was trying to make a point because it felt left out of this regional tour and left out of the talks to free the American-Israeli soldier captive that was released in direct talks between Hamas and the US officials?
No, it's exactly the opposite order. Israel was left aside because it was very clear to the American administration that Israel is an obstacle. Israel was left aside because it was very clear that Netanyahu is not ready to put an end to the war and to withdraw from Gaza. And without it, there is no deal, obviously. And therefore, Israel was left aside. Would Netanyahu be more cooperative and more courageous? He would be a full partner of what happened in the last week.
How do you read that? I'm curious to know, to get your take then, of how do you read the Israeli position developing going forward if, as the signals are coming from Donald Trump, that they're getting closer, the Americans are getting closer to doing a deal with Iran?
What can Israel do? Israel can do nothing about it. I think it's a very hopeful development. But those who believe only in bombing Iran as the only solution, what can they do? Israel cannot go for an attack over Iran without at least American approval. And if there will be a deal, there will be no approval, and I think many lives will be saved. But Israel can't do nothing about it. I mean, Israel is now at its lowest point in terms of being dependent on the United States. And therefore, the responsibility of Donald Trump is so criminal by letting Israel go to this operation in Gaza now.
And as you're talking, of course, just to remind viewers, Gideon, we're looking at these live pictures coming in from Baghdad. A lot of leaders gathering, to discuss their position on a number of issues, primarily the situation vis-a-vis Israel's war on Gaza. And Gideon, I'm wondering, this is coming just after that tour of the region, as I mentioned, by Donald Trump. How do you read what we have seen in the last few days with Donald Trump going through the region? Has there been something of an evolution in the US position towards the Arab world? Or do you read the situation closer to those who are critical of the Arab world and say they gave too much for too little in return?
It all depends on the devotion and the seriousness of Donald Trump. And I cannot foresee if he is serious. If he is serious about everything he said, and he will try to also implement some of the things at least. So it's a very, very positive development. For example, lifting the sanctions over Syria is a very hopeful step because it might change Syria. It might help Syria to stand on its own feet. It might help Syria to join the region and maybe one day also the Abraham Accord as Donald Trump tried to push them. Will he continue this direction in which the relationship with the Arab world is not only about doing what Israel wants to happen, but also what is good for the United States and good for the world, namely investments, new projects, innovation? Then Israel will have to decide, are you part of it, or do you want to be left aside as the only country whose language, the only language, is shooting and bombarding?
U.S. stocks closed higher on Friday, with the Dow gaining more than 0.75%, the S&P 500 climbing 0.7%, and the Nasdaq adding 0.5%. All three main indexes boasted weekly gains after starting off with a steep rally on Monday after the U.S. and China agreed to a 90-day pause in their escalating trade war. Stocks briefly lost ground early Friday when the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey slumped to its second lowest level ever, with consumers' one-year inflation expectations surging to 7.3%. Melissa Brown, managing director of investment decision research at SimCorp, said she was surprised to see stocks rally despite the downbeat report.
It's difficult to determine why investors remain so enthusiastic, with the exception of maybe, because stocks have been up on positive news about tariffs for a few weeks. And so it could be that stocks have the wind at their backs and investors are not that worried about one consumer sentiment number.
Stocks on the move Friday included United Health Group, which rose nearly 6.5% after 8 straight days of steep losses. Investors were warily expecting strategic changes at the insurer after the Wall Street Journal reported it was under a criminal probe by the Justice Department. Shares of Applied Materials slipped more than 5% after the provider of equipment for chip manufacturing missed estimates for second quarter revenue. Charter Communications shares rose nearly 2% after the cable company said it would buy privately held rival Cox Communications for nearly $22 billion. And shares of Verizon Communications rose after the Federal Communications Commission said it was approving Verizon's $20 billion purchase of fiber optic internet provider Frontier Communications after the largest U.S. telecom company agreed to end its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
This week, the US has been doing deals across the Gulf region, as in recent months have Donald Trump's family businesses.
This is completely unprecedented. We've never had a situation where a president has gone on a foreign trip abroad and only gone to countries where he has a personal financial interest. President Trump decided to begin the first major trip of his second term in Saudi Arabia.
He signed a multi-billion-dollar arms deal and said the US had no stronger partner. Compare that to Joe Biden in 2019, who, before winning the presidency, vowed to make Saudi Arabia a pariah state. That was because of the murder of Saudi journalist and US resident Jamal Khashoggi, a murder US intelligence concluded was ordered by Saudi Arabia's de facto leader, Mohammed bin Salman. And while, as president, Joe Biden would choose to meet the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia, even so, Donald Trump's visit significantly warms US-Saudi relations. "I like him too much," the president said of Mohammed bin Salman. Donald Trump's business empire likes Saudi Arabia too. The Trump Organization is run by the president's eldest sons, Eric and Donald Jr., and before and after their father's election victory last year, real estate deals in Saudi Arabia were signed. There's also the president's son-in-law and former advisor, Jared Kushner. A private investment fund that he runs received a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is controlled by the Saudi state. The Saudi state, remember, is led by Mohammed bin Salman. And this parallel deal-making with the US administration and with the president's businesses is not restricted to Saudi Arabia. From there, the president flew to Qatar. In April, a new Trump International Golf Club just outside Doha was announced. A state-owned firm, Qatari Dia, put out a press release detailing its involvement, along with the Saudi real estate company Dar Global. Eric Trump is quoted. He talks of being incredibly proud to work with both. Later, though, the Trump Organization sought to clarify that the deal itself was with the Saudi firm, but not with Qatari Dia. There's this too. Qatar has offered to gift a Boeing 747-8 for Mr. Trump to use during this term in office. And the president's keen.
I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture.
To senior Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer, this amounts to premium foreign influence with extra legroom. To prominent conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, President Trump promised to drain the swamp. This is not, in fact, draining the swamp, he says. Or there's the US Justice Department. It's led by Pam Bondi, who Trump appointed as Attorney General and who's a former lobbyist for the Qatari government. Multiple US media reports say she's now provided a memo explaining that accepting the jet would be permissible, though that memo hasn't been made public. And while the Qatari plane was being debated, in Qatar itself, deals with the US kept coming, including on defense and trade. There was a state dinner too. Mr. Trump called Qatar's ruling emir an outstanding man. For Qatar, just as for Saudi Arabia, this messaging is progress. In 2017, during his first term, Trump had criticized Qatar, claiming it had been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. The last stop of the trip was the UAE. It brought more deals with the US. Trump's family businesses have been busy in the UAE too. There's a plan for a Trump International Hotel and Tower in Dubai. And then there's the Trump family's crypto venture, World Liberty Financial. A state-backed fund in Abu Dhabi is using it to facilitate a $2 billion deal. The crypto venture's website lists President Trump as chief crypto advocate. And two co-founders of this venture are Zach Witkoff and Alex Witkoff. They're the sons of Steve Witkoff, who's listed as a co-founder emeritus. He's also a real estate investor, a golf buddy of Donald Trump's, and the president's special envoy to the Middle East. This three-country trip has, for some, raised concerns, but the White House rejects them. It's told the BBC President Trump just secured trillions of dollars of investments into the US, which will create good-paying jobs and bolster economic growth. As we have repeated time and again, there are no conflicts of interest. It's true, large deals with the US government and US business have been signed this week. It's also true that Trump's business empire has changed its approach to potential conflicts of interest. During Donald Trump's first term, the Trump Organization said it would no longer pursue overseas business ventures. This time around, there's a commitment to no new transactions with foreign governments. That is not the same and leaves plenty of space for deals. But Eric Trump has offered reassurances, promising a series of comprehensive ethical measures aimed at proactively addressing potential conflicts. But not everyone's convinced.
When Trump was elected for the second time, we were told that measures would be introduced to reduce conflicts of interest. Yet, in practice, we've seen quite the opposite. Rampant foreign entanglements, rampant conflicts of interest, leading people to question whether what the president is doing is in his interests or the national interest.
To those who question that, this is the White House response.
I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service.
But while President Trump isn't running his businesses while in office, he does still own them. And as a senior fellow at the Conservative American Enterprise Institute says, even if he's not running the company, he profits when the company does well. When he leaves the White House, the company is worth more. His personal wealth goes up. All of which is why, once more, for better or for worse, Donald Trump is taking the US presidency well outside of accepted norms.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were
Lawrence Ann Bartlett involved in major drug and gun trafficking case in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Prime Minister Drew reaffirms commitment to Nevis.
ECPCGC's MSME Growth Guarantee Initiative offers new hope for small businesses. Venezuelans in Guyana warned against support of illegal elections for Essequibo. The St. Lucia Prime Minister says gun violence is putting increasing pressure on the country's healthcare system. DBS St. Lucia has that story. Internationally, world indifferent as Israel planning huge extermination.
Thank you for listening.